All right, we're on.
Should have heard you.
All right. I'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Orange Township Board of Trustees for a special meeting being held today, June 12th, 2025, to order. Ms. Batten, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Ringo?
Here.
Trustee Fowles?
Here.
Trustee Knapp?
Here.
Will you please all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any public comment this morning before we have a presentation from our benefits provider? Seeing no public comment, I'll invite Dean up to the stage.
Thank you. Good morning. What I'm going to walk through is kind of a blend of what the employees experienced in terms of open enrollment these last couple of weeks, but including maybe some additional context to the township side of the equation. So, again, this is kind of a blend between what the employees saw. So this was kind of where we started with the discussion in front of everybody. Maybe rewind 2 weeks ago now. We really focused on what changed, what's changing, what are the costs, and then, quite frankly, open up to quite a hefty amount of Q&A. We tried to keep it simple, and we made some, pretty big changes this year, right? We made, to reset context, we got a 50% increase from Anthem, which is where we were the last 2.5 years. So this is just kind of high level. If you go back maybe 2 board meetings ago, I presented ancillary, which is basically everything not medical, and we had a really good story to tell. We changed carriers for lower costs for everybody and better benefits. So really, there's few win-wins in insurance, but that was definitely one of them. Only to then get stuck with a pretty big, increase for medical. So what changed was we moved lines to the standard medical insurance. We left Anthem, and we moved to a national reputable carrier called Cigna, and then we added a second medical plan. It's a high deductible health plan, which makes it HSA account eligible. And so in terms of receiving the information, it's easiest to just call it an HSA plan. So. It sounded like it was on, man. It just echoes in here. Okay. And then, when introducing a second plan, it is very customary, very, very customary for the employer to contribute some portion to the HSA, incentivizing, increasing the adoption of the other plan, and heightening the education of like what HSA even is, because now they have money presented to them, so they're going to understand how to use it, they're going to go get it, etc. So those are the big changes. And then let's show you other things. So top right, employee costs. So this is what the employees saw, with the exception of the percent change. We verbalized that, but for this conversation we added that. So you can kind of see in the orange there, we have the new HSA, and we're going to begin to call it the core plan, the buy-up plan. So cheaper plan and more expensive plan. The buy-up plan is the plan that everybody has always known it to be, which employees highly value. And then the core plan, as you can tell in the biweekly price difference, the core plan is cheaper. So in terms of what they paid last year, it's a 1% increase. In terms of their the payroll deductions. And then if they wanted to stay on the buy-up plan, it was a 23% increase. So again, to give it context, we were at a 50 with Anthem, and via some moves, negotiations, switching to Cigna, we were able to get that down to a 23. And then underneath that is just how we, to my earlier discussion, how we kind of built, the ideal migration to the HSA. When you're on an HSA plan, you're a little bit better of a consumer because it's first dollar coverage. So I'd say over the last 10 years, a lot of employers have migrated to two plans, choose cheaper, high deductible, more expensive PPO, buy up. So that's what we have now this approaching year, which starts July 1st. And then you can see the township's contributions were $1,000 for a single if they chose the HSA plan, and $2,000 for a family. And then we went ahead and explained kind of the most that you can do in a given year, and you can see those numbers. So pretty simple math, but if an employee was going to max out what they can do, you can see that third line, which illustrates that. And then if you're over 55, you have the opportunity to contribute an additional $1,000. And then this is the township's cost. So this was not presented, but again, verbalized quite extensively in our open enrollment meetings. We ended up having, not illustrated, we ended up having 12 people move to the high deductible plan.
Oh, 12.
We ambitiously hoped for 20. My realistic thought was maybe single digits, so 12 feels like a win. And year over year, with familiarity and testimonials for people that take it, that's typically how this goes. You see more migration to the high deductible, but it's hard that first year. So 12 out of 58 enrolling, about 22%. So somewhat pleased with that. And then because of 12, I think 4, I have it in my notes. I think 4 took the single plan, so $4,000, coming out of the township. And then with the remaining 8, they're getting $2,000, so 16. So it's about $20,000, which is about 1% of the total spend for the township because it's a $2 million healthcare budget. Flipping. We spent a lot of time attempting to make this digestible for the employees because we have an HRA called the difference card, and although very valuable, employees really like it. It can be kind of complex. So with the new plan, the township contributes the first $1,000. The employee then has an exposure of $2,300, which gets them to a $3,300 deductible, and then the difference card picks it up all the way to to Cigna's deductible and out-of-pocket max is the same number of $8,000. And then you can see the same illustration for the family plan. And then the next slide is the same thing. Oh shoot, you can click again to get the full. Yeah, there we go. Same as the previous slide, just maybe illustrated differently. This is what we presented to the employees. That last slide. We did not, but same stuff. So again, HSA, first 1,000 for an individual, 2,000 for anybody else, employee spouse, employee child, or family. And then there's exposure, responsibility on the employee to the tune of 2.3K or 4.6, depending on what tier you're enrolling in. And then the difference card picks up the rest. So quite different than the way we have it today, but also similar in the sense that the difference card is still the card being used by everybody. So that's somewhat of synergy, I guess you could call it. The HSA, operates entirely different than a traditional PPO model. Everything's a deductible, everything on a traditional plan is a PPO copay. And then anything on the high deductible, you're basically paying for that full price, with the exception of preventive care. So, you're maybe accustomed to paying a $25 copay. Now you're going to pay $100 to see that provider. But then you're going to hit your deductible, and you're going to be back to being covered at 100%. And the reason for the $1,000 is that's a tough task for someone wanting to enroll in that to then have $3,300 staring at them in the face. So the $1,000 subsidize that exposure and increases the migration. And feel free to stop me or ask questions along the way. The PPO, the buy-up, we'll now call it. You can do it one more time to see the rest. It didn't change. But to just educate that at a high level, the difference card picks up that whole blue box, with the exception of some small to medium copays. A very rich plan, very valued by employees, which is why we extended the option to offer it, however, at an additional cost, rather than pulling the rug in one given year. I think we appropriately explained to the employees the gravity of what the township faced this year, and more or less positive feedback, considering, I think, when you're staring at a really difficult conversation, providing two different options, at least alleviates a little bit of that. You know, to take a plan that is only 1% increase, I mean, 1% is a great, you know, using trend is a great increase considering. So they had that option, or they could stay on the Cadillac, we'll call it the Cadillac, but the buy-up plan. And then the next slide just illustrates how the plan works, similar to the 2 slides ago, kind of how the high deductible works. And you can see preventive is still covered at 100%, and then every copay for those visits, including pharmacy copays. Questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you mind going back to the HSA core plan slide? Just wanted to touch on the tax benefits of an HSA for a brief moment. So,
One down.
2 down.
2 down? Yeah.
Perfect. So my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but with an HSA, one of the many benefits is that the investments that one makes in an HSA or the employer helps contribute to in an HSA, they're owned by the employee. It's not like the FSA that we currently have where that expires at the end of the year, correct?
Correct, yeah. Pre-tax contributions, it can earn interest, you can ultimately eventually invest it, and then they come out pre-tax. So quite advantageous vehicle.
And
used correctly.
when you retire and or move on to a different job, that money goes with you.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So not only does the township currently contribute to the HSA account, but employees will eventually be able to, if they'd like to, be able to put some of their pre-tax salary into these accounts. So they'll reduce their federal taxable income. They'll get to earn interest, returns on what's in their HSA account that they don't spend on eligible medical costs. When they spend it on eligible medical costs, there's no tax on that.
Nope.
That will grow if they've got a balance in that account over their lifetime. And then when they hit the age 65, then they can take that money out of that account with no additional federal tax, just like some retirement accounts. So especially for people who don't anticipate having large medical bills, I mean, not everyone's going to hit their medical deductible every single year. I think it's a great investment opportunity for being able to provide the health care.
Yeah, we have an HSA we're on my husband's insurance, and some years we always max it out. We put everything in, plus the company contribution. Some years we use it all, some years we don't, and then just continues to roll over. So we are building that, whenever possible. So it's nice.
Can you go back to the, what was the page that showed the increase for employees?
Towards the beginning.
The second slide? Or
It showed like the premiums per month.
Page 4, maybe?
Right there.
So they're paying, so I'm confused. I thought that the final version that, there was an increase of like anywhere from 17 to 23%.
Yeah, we did better after that. We had
Okay.
one final round of negotiations, all positive, but the high deductible, the HSA option came down further. I think it was maybe illustrated.
I think you had said 7 in the
It's
meeting
now-
initially.
It's now 1.2.
Yeah.
Okay, so it came down. Okay, because what was approved, so what we received from the motion that was approved, it said 17.49% increase, but what was that?
And that's just that's an estimate with, if we assume 20 people were joining the HSA core plan and the rest were on the buy-up plan, we estimated it to be 17%. We'll never be able to get the exact numbers on that until open enrollment's completed. So there were less than, so 12's a new number for me. I thought it was 10, but that's better than what I thought. So there's 12 people on that, so the percentages are probably, I don't know if you know
And
the
do you know
total
those?
percent.
19.6.
Okay, thank you.
19.6 what?
Is the total increase for insurance this year
So-
after open enrollment was completed.
So what's the 1.25%?
That's just the increase on the individual's premium.
If they take that plan. So imagine, not everyone took that plan, so the township, because the township's numbers are similar, 1.2%, 23%, because the split didn't change. Your contribution to the plan remained at what the union negotiation is. And so if we would have had more migration than 20, which is what you have, you would have seen that 17 point something be even better than that. However, we only had 12, and so insert 19.6% to that number.
Yeah, you won't see the 19.6, because that's just over everybody that completed open enrollment, chose their plan. It is a 19.6% increase in total premiums for the employer and employee.
Right, so.
So how much is our increase? Is it
Yeah.
19?
So like budgetary purposes, our appropriations increased 19.6%.
And we had budgeted for 10%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what were we paying like in the prior year? What did we pay for health
It's, I think
insurance?
it was, well,
Like
what,
total?
Dollars, you mean?
Yeah,
oh,
like
I have
millions.
that. We paid, so in 2024, the township, sorry, just loading. In 2024, the township paid $1,562,000.
Okay. And then how much will this plan be?
Knowing that it is a 19.6 inch
But keep in mind,
increase.
we only have 6 months of that increase.
Yeah, so for the following year, it's increasing 1,868,000.
1,868
Yeah,
So going from
for 2026.
1.562 million to 1.868 million
Yes.
approximately?
But then this year, it would probably be, it
yeah,
should be
I don't know how it's broken,
less
well,
than
I
that,
guess,
right?
Half of that.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So,
because our renewal is a July 1, so 6
This
months.
calendar year,
Oh, yeah.
the remainder of the calendar year.
But I mean, from like the actual, was the last one for 12 months or?
The last one was for
18?
12 months, the year prior was for 18 months.
So for that 12-month period,
1.56, yeah.
okay.
so this year, it should be 1.715, $1,715,000
For this,
for 2025, because it's half a
so
year.
for, how much is it for a full year?
Full year is 1.86.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm still confused about the 1.25%. That's in.
That is the increase in the
In
premium cost.
From what
So my
it was-
paycheck,
Right.
I'm
You're single.
on the HSA core plan, I'm a single person, so my pay is, the 7142 is what comes out of my paycheck every week, every other week.
And what were you paying before?
Something like 70 point.
1.2% less than that.
So how is the townships going up by, whatever percentages, but their pay is only going up by 1.25?
Right.
Because
Going
it's
to the
a-
next
it's a-
slide.
Yeah.
That's- I'm
Combination
confused.
of 12 individuals, or 12 employees basically choosing the,
So it's cheaper for
for
this one?
them, and then it's the
Okay.
And the township pays
46
85.
people.
the cheaper premium
Right.
for their portion of that too, so.
Yeah, but if it's gonna increase, it would be a total increase if it was going by 10%, the employee contribution would also go up by 10% total, right? Because it's always 15% they're paying.
23% for that same plan, so that.
Only for those who picked the buy-up plan.
Correct.
So it's like a math thing.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
so people, and what we have here is not the do you have it per?
I think I think that was presented per month. She's looking at what
Yeah, I'm
you've
looking
given
at
us
per
at
month.
the executive session.
These guys are bi-weekly for
Yeah.
payroll deductions, so this complicates it a little bit, but multiply that times 12, and then divide by 26, and then you'll get the
or the other way around, right? Multiply by 26 divided by 12.
Right, so, because okay, so originally, the paper that was approved on May 21st said for a family, for example, $3,272 total cost, and it was going up to $3,763 for the HSA plan. So it's like $500 more, but you're saying it's not going up that high?
You're referring to the township's contributions?
Yeah.
So that's what's on this slide here.
Which one?
For what's being contributed to each type of plan for both healthcare plans. So if I'm reading the slide correctly, for employee and children, for the HSA, the township is contributing $768.93. But for a family, it's that $1,200 amount.
But we don't have the total amount.
Per month, you mean?
Yeah, it's hard to compare this when, I mean, I shouldn't have to be
Okay,
doing
so
math right
it should
here.
be, the new plan, so for the family, it's 1476.48 times 26 pays divided by 12 months, so $3,199 a month
Is that right?
is the
that right?
township's
Portion.
portion of insurance on the buy-up plan for a family.
I just want to reiterate, the township's increase is the same increase as the
Correct.
employee's
Percentages
increase.
Yeah,
are
that's
the
what I'm trying to
same,
say, yeah.
right.
It
Yeah,
has
yeah,
to be
totally.
Yeah,
because, you know,
yeah, because we didn't change, it's still the 85-15.
Yeah, exactly.
85% the township pays, 15% the employee pays.
So the total amount, that is about 306,000 increase for 12 months, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
For just the buyout.
No, altogether.
Yeah, if it's a
That's
19.6.
big numbers
Okay.
for all the
Is that
things.
what
Yeah,
it
you're
is?
right. Yeah,
Okay.
you're right, Lisa, 306,000.
Yeah.
Okay, and what percentage increase?
So
That would be that
19.6 is the
19.6%.
overall, after everybody picked their plans, the increase
So
for the premiums.
it's 19.6% total, okay.
So a family, just to continue on the math, a family now will pay $565 per month for their portion of the health insurance. And then the township is paying about $3,200 for our portion of that family's health insurance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so that's lower than what you originally quoted, right?
That number didn't, the PPO plan, the buyout, the plan that you've
That
had,
one didn't
that didn't change. What enhanced, what lowered in premium was the HSA, the other option. It was a
Okay.
7%, now it's a 1.2.
Okay.
So theirs is basically the same for all intents and purposes, for a couple dollars. With the plan change, obviously. And I shared this in the executive session, so when I used to work for Turner Construction, I had basically a buy-up plan, and then at some point, my husband's company changed to the HSA plan. And it does make you a smarter consumer, right? Like, we don't go to the doctor when we have the sniffles. We, drink a lot of water and orange juice. So, there is a personal responsibility aspect of it, just at least that's how I run our family. You can go to the doctor, but,
Right.
yeah.
All right.
I had a couple of questions. How many other of your clients have something comparable to a difference card?
Privatized employers, not many.
Okay.
To compare you to, because we have quite a subset, a niche in municipalities, public sector. Although not labeled the difference card, the difference card is kind of the creation from prior broker.
Right.
And it's a Pennsylvania broker, Pennsylvania-based vendor is who the difference card is.
Right.
So I'm adding that caveat. However, I would say there are townships that, as part of their incentive to work there, the benefits are very comprehensive.
Right.
Which I would label what Orange Township does as very, very comprehensive.
Right.
In terms of benefit offering. So percentage-wise, I'd say more than not have
So more than
a very
50% of
rich
your,
plan.
of your government employee clients do
Have a-
something
have a
similar to
very
this?
rich plan, yeah.
Okay. And then another question, is it possible, so our max deductible basically at 8,000 or 16,000. Is it possible for that to go down at some point? Do you think that would ever happen? And you don't have a
If
crystal
we
ball.
were to like, I don't wanna speak it into existence.
Right.
But let's say we had another really bad year.
Yeah.
In claims, so the township incurs claims and we get an increase from Cigna. We would probably be looking at harder conversations. Do we change the Cadillac? Do we change the buy-up? If we were to get rid of it, then, you know, I do think there might be a situation where we want to shrink that exposure. The township would still save money because we no longer have the Cadillac plan.
Right.
So possibly,
Is that something that the township has a say in, that the max deductible? Or is that just
Yeah.
something the insurance tells us?
no, we have a decision in that.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly. So fast forward, you know, although the budget operates calendar year, our insurance, at least in today's state of things, resets July 1st.
Right.
So I don't think anyone anticipated this large of an increase, obviously. So knowing what we know now, right, we were presented some, you know, tough truths. Fast forward 6-7 months, when we're back to doing this, going to market, looking at all options for July 1st, 2026, I think we will be, you know, what else should we be anticipating, considering a third plan, and that's just one of many examples. But I think we're going to proactively, more than we did this year. Anthem did us no favors, not only with their increase, but they delayed the renewal release, which really handcuffs our clients. So Cigna doesn't play that game. So we will get the renewal earlier, and then we'll know what that looks like, and we'll have far more time to have strategic discussions with everybody. This was kind of
It felt very rushed. yeah.
snowball. Anthem started it. Maybe, you know, it was already a pretty big snowball when Anthem delivered it to us. Hence why there's been, you know, we're doing so much of this late, right?
And Cigna is, you guys presented better reporting as well, whereas
Yeah,
Anthem
yeah,
provided
Anthem-
absolutely no reporting, which is what I think everyone was so shocked. So,
What do you
yeah,
mean? They provided what?
no reporting. So everybody was pretty much taken off guard when we saw the huge increase.
Yeah.
With a Cigna, we're gonna have more of a.
So like throughout the year,
Throughout the
they
year,
give us a
yes.
heads up how we're doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we can, like, as Dean stated, we can better prepare and kind of get ourselves, okay, it's
Yeah.
better, or it's, you know, let's hope it's the better conversation and not the worst.
I mean, because we're making budgetary decisions in October of this
Exactly.
year. I mean, so that's like just a couple months away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of that is terrific. It's true. And even though it'd be an infant-like amount of data, what happens in July and August, we'll have as you go into your October discussion. So maybe that would be a faint lens into, okay, through 2 months we've done this, and then, you know, extrapolate that
Right,
to
yeah.
try to give you guys a better opportunity to budget.
It's not gonna be easy, guys, it's gonna be hard.
It's hard
gonna be hard to
conversations.
budget it.
Yeah, and then there's lots of things that are being thrown out at the state level for
Yeah.
funding
It
for
would-
townships.
I
There's a
would
lot up
never
in the air.
have guessed this. We've had 6% under, 6% was the highest in the last 4 years. So, you know, this was unexpected, but it's just the reality of the situation, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, what was that, May 21st, or the meeting we discussed this, we went into executive session right away, and we were in there, I think, over 2.5 hours discussing this, is it correct?
Yep.
And we came out, and a decision was made, there was no discussion at all, which is why we're having this meeting, because I felt it was a violation of the sunshine law, and I'll continue to think that. We were all tired and ready to get out, and I didn't say anything, you know, about it. It was a 6-hour meeting, but I felt like all of this was discussed kind of privately, and we needed to bring this all out. But what I didn't like is that we went to executive session, and we were told that we need to make a decision right then and there. I mean, I know you're saying these rates got released really late, but that's not enough time to make a decision, and it felt extremely rushed, to me at least. I wasn't even sure what we were approving at the end. We read the resolution, and I wasn't sure we were doing 2 different plans and all these kind of things. And we were hoping that more people were gonna get on the HSA plan, is that correct? We were hoping for 20?
Yeah, we were hoping for more, and again, it was an unfortunate circumstances that we were in, really tight window. We had a really great insurance, Anthem was great during the 2.5 years, but they purposely, or there's a game with it in it, so they didn't give us any time to really make any long-term, or any decisions that would take longer than just that meeting. And I understand your concerns with the public session, and just for the rest of the board, and just for the record, I did get legal opinion, and we have not violated any sunshine laws, or any type of open meetings, or whatever.
Well, that's one person's opinion. I mean, if you actually read the Sunshine Law Handbook, it states that, any kind of decision is supposed to be discussed publicly, so I do disagree with that legal opinion. So explain again, so why were we given so little time to review this?
Anthem, who was our previous insurance carrier for medical, releases, if you remember, the township used to be a January 1 renewal. We got voted on to what I would, these are my own words, a healthy island called the ERC, which is a program within Anthem Blue Cross. And everybody renews on the July 1 calendar date if you're in that program. So that's how we got ourselves to a July 1. They release, I could go back, I think we had that executive meeting like 1 week after we got the news of the 50%.
Yeah, and
Which put us up a creek,
Sure,
in our
yeah.
role as middleman.
Yeah, and I just want to add too, like, the last 4 years that I've been part of this, we've only done it in one meeting because we've had such good renewals. So we all assumed it was going to be a consistent thing, and we just didn't have time. Now, for the future, for sure, we're going to have meetings all year round, it looks like,
We'll
so.
have more data.
Oh, yes.
So there's
Yes.
no legal requirement that they release anything at any certain date, correct?
With each passing year, we have hope. Recent president administration change, they say things like transparency, so here's the hoping. But yeah, currently for organizations your size, carriers don't have to. It's wild to say, but they really don't have to lift up the hood if they don't want to. And so Anthem does not. The arrangement we are going into with Cigna does. So
Okay. When will they tell us?
Data is king, to Donna's point, like, we can anticipate things better, we can see what's going on, we can consider various programs, if it's diabetes that's really crippling the
Yeah.
township, we can invest in that, right?
Yeah, and I would like to have another meeting potentially this fall to further discuss strategies for next year too. I want to be as proactive as possible, knowing that we can, again, we got hit hard this year, wasn't expected. I think we all know that we need to be a lot more proactive, given the circumstances.
So if we know that next year our date is still July 1, so it sounds like mid-May, sorry. So we made a decision on May 21st. It sounds like May 14th about-ish was when you guys found out about the 50% increase from Anthem. So when is it like a February timeline when you're gonna know from Cigna, March, April?
Mid-April.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so
more
it's
like a month to
Yeah.
5 weeks
Yes.
versus a 1 week.
Yeah.
We'll
and-
schedule 2 meetings just in case.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want as much data as
Yeah.
possible
Yeah.
Right.
behind that renewal,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
What is the date that you found out the renewal amount?
It's-
Specifically?
It's a meeting, so like everyone goes, it's at Nationwide Hotel right here, the conference center. I did not attend, my counterpart attended, and Mike Krenitzer.
Yeah, I
of
can
the
look at his
township. It's like,
calendar.
yeah, I'm looking too, May,
Oh, maybe I don't have it. Maybe, was it a Friday? Maybe May 9th? I see something on his,
I'd like to know when he was notified.
yeah.
because I didn't go. Appears I didn't have it on my calendar. I might not find it. I don't know, Michelle, if you can see it on Mike's calendar.
But do you get an email that notifies you at the meeting date, or
Yeah.
how do you know when the meeting date is? You get an email or
Yeah,
something in
yeah,
the
yeah,
mail?
Yeah.
What do you get?
Email.
Email, and they say, we're having this meeting on such and such a day, and you can't find the email?
I think it was earlier than that. If I'm looking at the calendar, I think,
I'd like to know what date that email, he received the email.
so I think that it's like a physical release, right, at the Anthem meeting?
Yes, they
But-
did mention that.
So
But,
HR Mike was there on May 1st, handed the release. I believe we heard the 50%. Now, we had no options to work with at that point, because then, it was basically like, go away, we're
And
not
that
gonna.
was just an Anthem.
That was just
That was
Anthem.
not.
We did not get any other carrier increases or any other carrier numbers till later that day. The following meeting, we did not have a full quorum, so I didn't add anything.
But
on
he's
that
our broker,
agenda.
so I'm asking him the questions right, so when did you receive notification that the rates were going up by 50%?
I think it was,
Can
was May
he
1st.
answer, please? Can he answer? He's the broker, he's not an employee.
I'm trying to connect to Wi-Fi. I'm having a hard time.
Or if you could just email it to us later, but I would like to see that definitively in writing.
Yep, how about that? Is that
Send me,
okay?
you're gonna put an email the date you received?
Correct, yep.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. So then, someone was notified, he notified Mike of the date, and Mike went to this meeting, and then they physically hand you the increase in premium. They said, this is how much it's going up. And it's my impression that Anthem basically wanted to boot us off. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yeah, I
Did-
mean, financially de-incentivizing us to, like, who would take that, right? If we could find a better option, which we did.
And there's they offered no other options other than the 50%.
I mean, typically in my line of work, you get a competitive proposal and you take it back to the incumbent, which is Anthem, and say, hey, do better, and Anthem did not budge a percent, nothing, right? So, to your earlier point, yeah, Anthem was kind of saying, no thanks.
Okay, and so you checked with other insurance carriers as
Yeah,
well?
all major medical carriers around here, Cigna, Aetna, Anthem, Medical Mutual of Ohio, MMO, and United Healthcare, yep.
What was their reason for the 50% increase? I checked with other townships and other political entities in this
Yeah.
area, and that no one's ever had that.
A lot of high claimants. So what that means is, people on the plan, and that can be employee, that can be a spouse, that can be kids, dependents. To give you maybe some numbers, there's roughly 175 total people on the township's plan, and 54 of them were deemed high claimants, which percentage-wise is very high. And to your point, asking around to the clients we serve elsewhere, really uncharacteristic.
Yeah, no one's,
Yeah.
it's pretty unusual. So my concern was that we're gonna run into the same thing next year, is that there's gonna be a lot of high claimants, and we're not gonna be insurable, or it's gonna go up by an insane amount again.
Yeah, that's now definitely what I think we're all probably fearing. I wouldn't call it uninsurable. There's ultimately.
I guess you're always insurable, but at a cost.
Ultimately, there will be an option. It's generally speaking not the one that most employers take, but the Affordable Care Act has, plans out there that do not ask about health. It's age and it's gender, and that's it. So I don't want that for the township and for the employees. But just to your point on what would worst case be, it would be engaging a plan like that. But
That's very high deductible, correct? Those plans?
you can find better deductibles. But to be transparent, those plans, like currently we have Cigna. Cigna, you can go almost anywhere, like 98% of providers here locally are gonna be in network. If we were to go into the arrangement that I'm speaking of, you typically pick a plan and that means you can go to Ohio State, Medical Center, or you pick that plan and you can go to Mount Carmel. So if you remember like back in the days of like the 90s, like HMOs, which is like, I have this insurance, which means I can go here. That's, in my own words, kind of what the affordable, what the individual market is. And there are still ways to go that route and still offer employees a comprehensive benefit, but it is a wildly different change. And so that wasn't something we were going to pull off in a matter of weeks this year. However, knowing what we know and fearing, the idea of another big increase, I think throughout the year we're going to have these tougher conversations proactively, like what about this, what about that, if this, if that, to where we're not feeling like this right now. And with Cigna, we have much better odds of doing that with information. With Anthem, we had nothing. We wait for the renewal. They tell us one sentence, you have 54 claimants, to which, high claimants, to which we probably asked, because I've never heard a number that big for an organization your size. We asked probably 10 times to please confirm that. Like, you must be, leaving out a number or including an extra number of fat fingering. But no, it was 54 claimants, which generates a 50% increase, according to Anthem, right?
Okay, yeah, because I voted no on the resolution because I wanted just one plan, because I didn't think very many people were gonna jump off onto the HSA plan because the other plan is so good. So I didn't see there was a big incentive. I considered jumping on the township plan as well, because it's really, really good for if you have any kind of things going on. So that was my concern, is that next year we're gonna be in the same boat again because our claims are gonna be very high, and if we're gonna have the same people who sadly are experiencing health issues, and we'll have a lot of really high claims. So my concern is next year, where we're gonna be at.
Yeah, valid concern, and I think that's why we're gonna have strategy meetings throughout the year, considering, more extreme, there's probably a better vocabulary, changes for next year.
Yeah.
Like to your point, one plan only, and it's no longer the Cadillac plan.
With maybe co-insurance or something like that, like
Sure,
80/20
yeah.
or,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
when I was checking with most entities, they do have some amount of co-insurance, so there's some
Yeah.
skin in the game.
It's fortunately for the township, because you guys have had such a comprehensive benefit, the difference card, to those discussions, the difference card is quite confusing. I mean, you witnessed it. You
Very
look at this piece of
confusing.
paper, then you look at that piece of paper. We're at the mercy of Anthem, but then the difference card takes a couple of days, to which I would think they could turn it around, the request around in an hour or two. So I agree with you. When I try to benchmark the Orange Township's plan, it's somewhat difficult because of the difference card. So included in those discussions throughout the next, call it 6, 7, 8 months before we're here again, we're probably also including, a different vendor than the difference card. I would say all options are on the table because of the fear of what if this happened again.
But the difference card does seem to keep the rates down, is that correct?
For the employees, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the,
But
The
there's a cost to it.
there's a cost to it, but the difference card, to add another acronym, is an HRA, so not HSA, not FSA, but HRA. And what that effectively means if someone doesn't spend their dollars, the township keeps it. So there is a layer in this that is beneficial to the township. Unfortunately, a lot of people are using their funding, they're using their HRA, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just worried about next year. That was my primary concern. Let's see. Do I have any more questions? So do you service any other townships in the county?
Yes. You want them right now?
Yeah, or do you know a few off the top of your head?
Dean Stitz, myself, I guess replace township with city, but city of Delaware is a client of mine. And then we have McGowan Bravener, who I represent, has, I would deem it a niche, a vertical in kind of public government sector, I wanna say we have over 120 total. I'll just rattle off who I know: City of Springfield. Can I follow up to you?
Yeah, I was
It's
just,
a good
but any in
question.
Delaware County other than City of Delaware that you can
Is
recall?
Violet Township?
No.
No.
That's Franklin, I think.
Again,
Yeah, that's all right.
Dean
So-
Sitz doesn't know the answer, but he will. How about that?
That's fine. And let's see here. And so when we fill out the form fire that everyone has to fill out, that information does not go to the current carrier, is that correct? It did not go to Blue Cross or Anthem?
No, they have all.
The
of that.
history,
They have
right,
history,
okay.
yeah. That is, for context, that is what we need to get all the other players to participate, all the other.
So you
carriers.
give that to the other
Correct.
insurance.
Why can't we just give what Anthem knows to them? Because Anthem doesn't release that, right? So, kind of perpetuates the problem to some degree.
Because you can't really see the total dollar amount of the claims, is that correct? Unless you have like 100 more employees or something like that?
Yeah,
I mean,
or you're in
the
a-
aggregate total, you know.
Yeah, or a self-funding arrangement, which oftentimes starts to show up routinely at kind of the 100 mark, so yes.
And you said, let's see here. And so they don't actually they give you a form at that meeting at the hotel? They actually give us some form that
Yeah.
shows the rates? Does
Yeah.
someone have a copy of that? Does Mike,
Yeah.
would Mike have a
That
copy of
packet, I
that?
think.
Yeah, we would. too.
Right, Mike has it,
That
okay.
can be a follow-up, absolutely.
Okay, maybe that, along with the one date I was asking for. Do you guys have any more questions?
I got that
None?
answered, no.
Yeah, everything? Okay, let me just make sure. So the date, so we'll be reviewing every month, we'll be able to see the amount of claims we're paying out? Or what was that where you said we could check in?
Yeah, is it
on
monthly
things?
or quarterly, or?
It is monthly. Yeah, we can get it monthly if you want it monthly. I don't want to overspeak and say what we can do, because I haven't seen the Cigna data recently. At bare minimum, you'll have a report that will be Cigna's. I'm trying to think if we're able to put it through our own reporting to make it more digestible, because what we get is confusing. But yes, yeah. Monthly.
Like every monthly or quarterly?
Quarterly at minimum, yeah, if that's.
So they'll
an
say how
option.
much money, or how many total amount of claims, but I mean, I don't know what we would be able to do about it at that point. We would just have a heads up.
Yeah, just
the total
trying to
amount.
figure out what we should plan for.
Yeah, exactly. And so we should know by April, you were saying, of next year,
Yeah,
maybe?
I conservatively call
Mid-April?
it third or fourth week of April, but I'm hoping for mid-April. And then just for what happens after that, because we don't have any other proposals, we need that in order to go secure proposals. So you're at the mercy of the incumbent providing you that, which is how Anthem kind of made it hard this year. Cigna will release the renewal. McGowan Brabender will go shop comprehensively the market, all options on the table. Including in that is maybe even the secondary market, which historically we haven't needed to do, we haven't wanted to do, because your employees want comprehensive benefits. But knowing the stakes that we could be looking at, we're gonna widen that search.
What's a secondary market? What does that mean?
Carriers that the gatekeeper at the provider might not know.
Oh, okay. So
Which-
maybe ones that not as many of our doctors
Affordable
take as
care.
in-network.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha, thank
yeah,
you for speaking,
yeah,
Erica.
Yeah.
Not
What's-
desirable.
Not sure.
Yeah, okay. With Cigna, are we gonna have any issues with employees not being able to see their own doctor? Is it-
I will not make it a guarantee, but very, very, very few. Cigna, Aetna, Anthem, United, and MMO are all competitive here. All providers know they need to be a network of all 5 of those. So with 99% certainty, employees will be able to see who they currently see. You have 175 members, there'll probably be 1, maybe 2 that have to consider going to somewhere else.
But OSU is within network with Cigna?
OSU,
Because I know we have
all
some people in there.
hospital systems that you could think of here locally are in network with Cigna.
Okay.
Yep.
And they're easy to deal with?
Yeah, Cigna nationally is huge. In terms of Central Ohio, I would say Anthem, United Healthcare are probably the big one too, and then insert Cigna, Aetna, and then MMO. But yes, yeah, and then nationally, they're bigger than the other two, so.
And so an insurance broker, with their commissions, do they make the same amount for each company, or does it vary by carrier?
Our commissions, to over-communicate, we actually drop them in order to make this renewal better. I don't want to.
You have to tell me
No,
the amount,
not
but
everybody has to clap. So
They lowered their fees because this was such a big jump,
Okay.
so, to help us out.
So yeah, Cigna's commissions to Mago and Braven are actually lower than what they were with Anthem, if that answers me.
so each carrier has a different, or you just negotiate it per carrier, or is there a flat rate, or?
You guys are in the middle of because of your enrollments right around 55, some carriers it's standardized, this is the way or the highway, and then others are negotiable. Cigna is, so we negotiated it.
Is Anthem?
Anthem was as well. You came from, when you started with Mago and Brabender, to rewind, I don't know, maybe it was 4.5 years ago, the commissions from prior broker were 1% of premium, so, which is wildly counterintuitive to Mago and Brabender, like why would we make more money when your renewal goes up? So our very first effort of action when we took over was to turn it into a per capita. So like however many employees take the plan times whatever the dollar is, and if I apologize, I don't know it. That's our commission versus, we get a 50% increase, that would have been a 50% raise for Mago and Brabender.
Yeah.
So again, that logic was prior broker, out of state. Let's just assume every broker here in Ohio is much more by the book and appropriate.
So you're paid by the carrier a set amount
Yeah.
per employee,
Correct.
no matter the plan that you choose?
Correct.
Okay, and the township doesn't pay that directly, it comes from the carrier, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so no matter if you pick Cigna or any other company, it's still
Correct.
per
Correct. Yeah,
capita?
yes. Mhm.
All right, I think that is, I just felt like the whole thing was really rushed, and I've never been in an executive session, I don't think, for over 2 hours. I mean, that was pretty unprecedented, but we had to understand everything in a hurry, and we would have liked to have, I think, another meeting, but then we were told we had to make the decision that day, and I don't like to make such major million-dollar decisions, unless it's like a serious emergency. So I think that was, it was stressful on me at least. I'm assuming it was probably stressful on the other two. I just didn't feel like I had a lot of answers or information. And then, there's some vacation schedules and things that were going to be hard to work around. And we couldn't have had a meeting the very next day because of
Well, because the open
work
enrollment had to
schedules,
start
too.
that next week too.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Yeah, we
it
didn't
was
have any
pretty
time to
crunched.
have another quick
By the time it got
meeting.
to us, obviously, it was pretty crunched. But
Yeah.
that difference card information, I think you got that like an hour or two before our executive session, which was that last piece that we needed to be
Yeah,
able
it's
to make some
crazy because
decisions.
that really
Yeah,
gives
it's-
people, there should be some kind of law because you can really leverage that for people to make a quick last minute decision, which is,
Echo.
which is never
It's
good.
not
That's never
Now
good
you're
for
just
anybody,
standing in
know?
line of fire for somebody else's decision.
Okay, well, hopefully we won't be in the same boat next year. Okay, I think that is all the questions I had.
Okay.
Thank you very
that's all
much,
I got.
Dean.
Thank you,
All
Dean.
right, thanks.
We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
No.
Let me just make sure. Have my list. Nope, I'm done.
Okay, I think that concludes what we were going to discuss at today's meeting. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve Resolution 25-169, meeting adjournment.
Second?
Roll call. Trustee Knapp?
Yes.
Trustee Faust?
Yes.
Trustee Ringle?
Yes, meeting adjourned.